Hey everybody, Koricon Nerd here, and I'm on my way to see Spyder. Didn't want to tell anyone, we just wanted to be a surprise movie review that I dropped. So here it is. I'm not going to South Denver for this one. They are showing it in Fort Collins, which is a little bit closer, but it's north, so I don't have to deal with the Denver traffic. And I've decided I don't have the time to go to South Denver for a movie anymore. It's just too far away. You know, it takes 8 to 10 hours out of my day. I'm working 2 jobs. But if I can get to Fort Collins, I can usually get there in about 45 minutes. So that's a little bit better. It's better than an hour and a half. It's still a long day, but if I have a day off like I do today, then I can do it. So that's why we are going to see Spyder today. I had a day off. It's the opening day of the movie. So let's go to Fort Collins and watch it. The trailers looked interesting. You'll have to let me know what you guys think if you've seen the movie. But, yeah, let's head on down to Fort Collins. Well, we made it. We made it to the Cinemark in Fort Collins. A much, much more pleasant drive than going to South Denver. It took me about 45 minutes. The only downside is they don't always show Indian films up here. So I don't know what movies would show up here in the future, but I will keep an eye on it because this one is a lot better than the one in South Denver. But I got here a little bit earlier than I was expecting. So I got about a half an hour to kill, but that's not too bad. So we're going to go see Spyder. I'll see you afterwards. So I just saw Spyder. I liked it. I thought it was good. There's some things that I have problems with and things that I really like. And of course I'll be going through all of that in my review. So now to head home and start working on what I want to say, and then I need to eat some dinner because I haven't really eaten all day. And then we'll get into the review. So let's head home. Hey everybody, Koricon Nerd here, and this is my review of Spyder. It's a Telugu Tamil joint production movie. I saw the Telugu version, that's what was showing at the theater up here. And this is directed by A.R. Murugadoss and starring Mahesh Babu as Shiva, our main hero, Surya S.J. as Baravadu, who is our villain, and Rakul Preet Singh as Charly, the love interest. And they all did a very good job. Very well done. The best way you can tell if you enjoyed a movie is what I call the time perceived test. Did it feel longer than it was? Did it feel shorter than it was? Or did it feel about the same? Usually if you look at the time of a movie, and you come out and it feels like a lot longer than what the movie was, it's not a good movie. If it feels shorter than what the movie was, it's a good movie. And if it feels the same, then you enjoyed yourself. It was what it was supposed to be. The movie is 2 hours and 35 minutes, and I had a bit of a mix on the time perceived test. When the first interval hit, the intermission, I was like, whoa, that came fast. So the first interval went really fast for me. The time perceived there was shorter. And then for the second half of the film, the time perceived was a little bit longer. So my overall time perceived for the entire film was about the length that it actually was. So I did really enjoy myself. I think the first interval is stronger than the second interval, but I still really enjoyed the second interval. One of the things about the second interval that made it feel a little bit longer was there were a lot of things that reminded me of other movies. For one, the story follows a lot of the same beats as The Dark Knight, Batman The Dark Knight. Our villain is very much of a Joker-style character, and he gets captured. They have the interrogation scene. He sets up something. Then he escapes. Like, there's a lot of beats to The Dark Knight that it follows. Also, the villain is structured around that type of character, but not exactly. And I loved what they did with the character. I'll get to that in a bit. And our hero kind of follows along the same lines as Batman did in The Dark Knight, using technology to find bad guys and things like that. Now, the teaser for this film had the Spyder, the robotic spider that crawls up his leg and comes over his shoulder. And I was under the impression that he creates that. He uses it somehow for his spy in the movie. But that's not the case. Now, I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but there is no spider, actual robotic spider, that I remember in the movie. I think the teaser was just trying to show technology, kind of showcase some of the CG that they will be using in the film, and make it a spider since the title of the movie is Spyder. But none of that is in the film. Now, the room he was sitting in is, with all the monitors and everything, and that production set looked really good. I don't think I would say that that teaser is misleading, because the trailer was not misleading at all. The trailer really does show what the movie is, but one good thing the trailer doesn't do is give away the villain. And they give little highlights of the villain, like a little bit here or there, but not the main awesomeness that is the villain. Now, I'm going to talk for a minute about our villain. So if you do not want to know anything about him, because it could be considered spoilers, skip to this time and move on to the next section. So this is your fair warning. Pause it, skip ahead. Here we go. So our villain has a unique attribute, which most great villains have a unique attribute. You know, the Joker had the Joker face, but his past was a mystery. It was a mysterious character. No one knew where he was coming from. It makes him kind of intriguing. A lot of the other Batman villains had the same thing. You know, Scarecrow makes people fear things. He's got the mask on. But this character has something that was more of akin to like a James Bond villain, where he has an interesting attribute. In this movie, it was the hearing of cries and wailing from grieving people. And I loved how they set up his character. Being born in a cemetery, the first thing he hears once he's born is people crying and wailing because his father is a mortician. And it kind of molded his youth to where he becomes reliant on the cries and wailings of others to feel good about himself. And the kid that played him as a young person did an amazing job. I tried to find his name, but I couldn't find it in some of my quick searches. He's not on IMDb or the Wikipedia or anything. So if you know who that kid actor is, let me know, because he did a great job. He was super creepy. Super, super creepy. I liked that kid a lot. And he did a great job, because his job as a young character is to set up who we're going to see. because we have not seen the villain yet at this point. So it's his job to set up the character and make him to where when we see the adult version, that this makes sense, that he would become this person. And the kid did a great job. I was really impressed by that kid. And on the other side, our, Soraya did a great job as our villain. I mean, my gosh, he was a crazy, awesome villain. And I liked the fact that he was driven by this need to hear people crying and grieving. And when he did, he would do these creepy things like trying to imitate what they were doing, like trying to cry or grieve, and he would move the same way they did, and then he would smile. Oh man, it was like giving me goosebumps. He was such a creepy guy, and I loved it. It reminded me of a book that came out in 1985, which was turned into a movie in the 2000s called Perfume, A Story of a Murderer by Patrick Sunkin. And in that book, the baby was born without a scent. He did not give off a smell. But he had a hypersensitive nose and could smell everything. Very detailed. And he became a perfumer in the 1700s or 1800s in Paris, France, where he would create perfumes because his nose was so sensitive that he could get really precise perfumes and be able to copy popular perfumes. But he became a killer because he found these women that had a scent that he couldn't live without. And he would kill them and distill their smell into a perfume. It was a crazy story, weird, but I loved that kind of character, that weird, quirky uniqueness about him. And that's what we got with this villain. It's a very weird and quirky thing. It makes him so crazy and psychotic. I just loved what they did with him. It was my favorite part of the movie was that villain. I loved him. Mahesh Babu did a really good job as a believable hero that needs to do something to help people, that he really cares. And he very much is like a Batman-style character. He just doesn't wear a Batman suit or anything like that, but he uses technology to try and find people that need help and then goes and tries to help them before a crime happens. Now, there's some moral issue in there about, listening in on people's phone calls and stuff like that, but they do some things to make it to where he's not like spying on people himself. He's using software to do it. But I guess if it's a hero, you kind of suspend belief and allow them to do those kind of almost illegal things like Batman does and other superhero style characters because we trust them. And so we trust that he is a good hero. He's not going to do anything bad with this technology. And so you go along with the flow. You allow him to do these kind of illegal things for a good reason. Rakul Preet Singh as Charly. She was an adorable character. I really liked her. I thought she fit in well with the story. And her personality and her banter with other characters was great. I really liked some of the scenes that she had with Shiva's mother. Those were very humorous scenes, and they played off each other very well. And again, the star, though, is our villain and that amazing kid that played him as a child. I need to know who that kid is. You got to let me know. He needs super props because he set up that villain so perfectly. On the production side, the set design and our production looked really good. I enjoyed the area where he was doing all of his surveillance with the computers, a lot of blues, soft tones, technology going on, steel kind of metal look. Although it was a bit, fantastical, it still looked really good and I liked that. However, the visual effects, not as great. There were some scenes like the roller coaster scene, which we saw in the trailer, did not turn out very well. There were a lot of moments where I'm like, no, they'd be dead. They'd be dead right there too. Nope, they'd be dead. And the visual effects was not believable enough with some pretty choppy VFX and green screen that you couldn't suspend belief enough you were just like, no, they'd be dead, they'd be dead, they'd be dead. And then when it was over, you're like, no, they'd be dead there too. So I didn't like the roller coaster sequence. I think it should have been cut out of the film and just had maybe a chase sequence with those two characters. Although it was a really great idea, I do like the concept of that roller coaster fight sequence. I think it's a great idea. I just think the execution of it wasn't done right. They didn't have the time, ability, and technology to be able to pull it off right. There's nothing wrong with that. They just should have done something that would look better on film and work better with the story. However, they had a hospital sequence, and the hospital is kind of breaking apart. Shiva's trying to save some people in the hospital, and they used a great mix of practical effects with some visual effects. So even though the visual effects didn't look awesome, they fit well with the practical effects. And they were used as a way of just selling the idea a little bit more, but not as the main focus. So they had really large practical sets for some of these crumbling building sequences that looked great because of the practical effects. And so I was impressed with that sequence. I enjoyed that one a lot. The directing was also done very well. We had some stylized shots, you know, some hero shots and things like that. But that's normal, especially in a film that's like this, almost a superhero-ish style film. You're going to need those stylized things, but he doesn't overuse them. He uses them just enough to get the point across. And in the rest of the film, he has a very more straightforward directing style that supports the story. He's not directing as a way of like being artistic or trying to overshadow the story. He is supporting the story. So I give props to the directing. Very well done. Now for the part a lot of you want to know about, the music. The main theme song, I really liked what they did with the main theme song. I enjoy the mix of genres in there. They worked very well together in that song. You have a lot of electronica with horns in the beginning of it. And then when you get to the chorus, it's more of a rock electric guitar. But the way that they go from horns to electronica to guitar, it flows very nice. It sounds very good together. However, they used that song too many times in the movie. By the end of the movie, when the theme song would pop up again, I would be like, yeah, okay, I was done with that song. I heard it too many times. They should have only used it maybe 3-4 times in the movie. Instead, they were using it for almost anything where he was doing something on a computer. They had another background song for when he was working with the team, which was a good song. I liked that as well. And there was another song in there, a background song, that distracted me because I was trying to figure out where I've heard it before. And it took me a while, but I think it sounds like a lot of the theme music from Mad Max Fury Road. And I could be wrong about that, but it sounds very similar to me. So I would have liked that song to be more of an original song and not reflective of that. And also there was another song, that background music, that was reflective of Hans Zimmer's Dark Knight music, only really in the beginning with the clock ticking sounds, and some of what they did with the strings sounded a lot like that main theme from The Dark Knight when you introduce the Joker and stuff like that. So although they changed the music a lot, those elements that they borrowed from those songs kind of threw me off. I would have liked that they just made their own original music and not used any elements from those other two movies. But it does make sense, since they borrowed from the storylines of The Dark Knight, that you kind of borrow a little bit of the tone of the music as well. So I'm not mad about it. It kind of pulled me out of the movie a little bit because I kept thinking about where I heard this music before instead of concentrating on the dialogue and what was happening in the story. All of our song and dance numbers were pretty catchy and decent. I didn't hear any songs that really popped out at me too much, except maybe the first one, Boom Boom. That one was a little better than the rest of them. However, the lyrics in the song were simplistic. The music, the song and dance, they were music videos. However, they did an interesting thing that I haven't really seen before, at least that I can remember, where they intercut montage scenes into the music video. So they had a large production music video that really had nothing to do with the movie on location visual wise. But then they would intercut these montage scenes of what is going on at that time. And so it didn't quite pull me out of the movie. It still kept me in there. I thought it was an interesting mix. It's kind of like a nice compromise between having a music video but not distracting from the storyline. It still gives you things of what's going on, but you still get your music videos. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, a part of me still would prefer, well, no, I would still prefer the music, song and dance numbers to take place on location and visually have something to do with the storyline as well. But it was nice having those montages pieces inside the music videos so that I still had reference of what was going on in the story. So to wrap up, we had some interesting main characters that I enjoyed. The villain was awesome. Loved the villain, especially that kid. Both actors who played the villain did a great job. Pretty good flow on the storyline, and the song and dance music videos didn't distract too much from it, but they still did. So the flow of the story was okay. It was pretty good. The VFX, not great, but it was good to see that they used practical effects for some of the main sequences and used visual effects as just a way of adding to it. But the large sequences that were almost all VFX and green screens didn't quite work right, but they were still entertaining to watch. The borrowing of musical elements from Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL was a little bit distracting because it kept making me think of where I heard this before instead of concentrating on the film. But it was still good music and I enjoyed it. I'm going to give this movie a grade of a B+. I would highly suggest seeing this in the theater. I had a blast watching it. The second half drags a little bit, but the villain is so engaging that I didn't care. I just loved that villain. He was the highlight of the movie. If they didn't have him, I don't think the movie would play very well. So, great job, guys. I enjoyed the movie. I had a lot of fun. But let me know what you guys think. Comment below and let me know your thoughts on Spyder. What did you like? What did you not like? Did you love the villain? Did you think he was a little too crazy and violent? I thought it was awesome. But let me know your thoughts. I also have links to all of my social medias, Mailbox, Patreon, Discord. Everything is in the description below. So check those out. And if you're on VidMe, upvote this. Give me a follow and share it around. If you're on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends. And I will see you on the next video.